on set is our international affairs editor, Philip Turle. Philip, we've had 5 hours now since Donald Trump's comments on social media. We've had Israeli ministers talking about it. As Cyril said there, we've had sort of comments coming out from Beirut as well. I mean, how do you think we should interpret all these latest announcements?
Well, I was on the air early this morning and I was talking about cautious optimism, but I think you have to add another word to that, and that is confusion, because nobody really knows what is going on, as we've just been hearing from Cyril Payat in Lebanon. It appears that this phone call may go ahead today. If it does, it's going to be a revolutionary phone call, because no high-level talks have ever taken place at that level before. But Lebanon is still saying it doesn't have any information about this call and whether or not it's going to take place. What appears to be happening here is that Donald Trump wants to finish with the conflict in the Middle East. He's pushing Benjamin Netanyahu to get to the negotiating table to find a way out of the fighting between Hezbollah and Israel independently via Lebanon and the Lebanese authorities. The problem is that Lebanon's authorities don't have an awful lot of sway over the way Hezbollah reacts. Remember, it's a proxy of Iran, and it controls vast swathes of southern Lebanon, as we've just been hearing. At the same time, we've got the discussions going on, or possible future discussions in Iran. We've got this Pakistani negotiator, Field Marshal Asim Munir, who has arrived in Tehran to move forward with those discussions that could take place this weekend in Islamabad. But there again, cautious optimism, but confusion, because we don't know where these talks are going to take place. Maybe they will be in Pakistan. We don't know who's going to represent the United States. Will it be J.D. Vance again? Remember that the talks that happened just a few days ago ended after 23 hours with no breakthrough. There are three things on the agenda that the Iranians want. First of all is the opening, the end of the blockade by the United States of the Strait of Hormuz. The second one is reparations for the damage which has been inflicted on Iran as a result of the war. And it's agreed to a 5-year suspension of its nuclear enrichment program. That is something the US said it's not in favor of. It wants a moratorium on the nuclear enrichment program. So it's difficult to see how those two sides are going to see eye to eye. Iran has been replying to all of this in quite a vociferous manner, saying that if the United States does not end its blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, well, it's going to go further in its blockade and will now start blocking the Red Sea and also the Gulf of Oman. So we'll have to see how all of this plays out over the next 3 hours. But as I was saying, cautious optimism, but certainly confusion about where this is all going.
So what's been the reaction to all of that then from Iran?
Well, I think that the Iranians are remaining pretty tight-lipped about all of this. As I was saying, they are threatening the Red Sea. They say that they have no information about this follow-up meeting, which the United States is talking about, and which Pakistan is trying to get together for this weekend. Donald Trump has been saying all the way down the line that Iran desperately wants a deal. It's got no more air force. It's got no more marine force. It's had its nuclear capacity obliterated. It's desperate to come to the negotiating table. That doesn't always appear to be the message coming out of Iran. What we're seeing here, Stuart, is, of course, Iran with its eyes on a long-term game here, because they know the longer that the regime can survive, the more a chance it is that Iran will be able to pick up the pieces afterwards. What Donald Trump is under pressure for time to get this over and done with as quickly as possible, because he has the midterm elections coming up in November and doesn't want this war to drag on for months. Iran knows that. They are militarily underwhelmed or overwhelmed by the Americans. What they do have is this capacity to block the Strait of Hormuz and to play for time to try to increase the chances of survival of the regime.
Finally, Philip, we're going to talk about China. President Trump says he's received what he called a very sweet letter from the Chinese President Xi Jinping. That is, earlier reports said China is preparing a shipment of weapons to Iran. Break it down for us.
Right. Well, this is also a very interesting story. Just to break this down to begin with, China buys 90% of Iran's oil. That accounts for about 16% of consumption within China. Of course, with the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, that oil's not going to China. What Donald Trump is trying to do is put the pressure on China to, again, put the pressure on Iran to end the Strait of Hormuz blockade from the Iranian side. Whether that is going to work or not, we don't know. Remember that Donald Trump Trump is due to go to China next month in the middle of the month of May to meet with Xi Jinping. This meeting has been scheduled for months, long before this war began in Iran. So that is the context. Now, Iran is believed to be receiving or about to be receiving a weapon shipment from the Chinese that is being sent from Beijing, and according to our colleagues at CNN in the United States, Beijing is working to route the shipments through third countries to mask their true origin. Now, Donald Trump's been asked about this. He says that Beijing would face severe consequences if it sent weapons to Tehran, but he says in his latest tweet that there will be no weapons, as they have agreed not to send weapons to Iran. So there again, another confusing lot of messages coming out from the White House and from Donald Trump.
Philip, thanks very much. Philip Turle, our international affairs editor here on France 24.